Welcome to True Crime Unleashed. What I want to talk about tonight is Bryan Kohberger has been moved to J Block in the Idaho State Maximum Security Institution. Now, what is J Block? The Idaho Department of Corrections has confirmed that Bryan Kohberger has been transferred to J Block, the restrictive housing unit in the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. IDOC tells us that J Block is a long-term restrictive housing unit used to hold inmates in protective custody, long-term restrictive housing, and death row. Well, I will tell you this right now. He's not in protective custody. He is in the long-term restrictive housing. The long-term restrictive housing unit consists of single-person cells where inmates are moved in restraints. So basically, if he needs to take a shower, he has to be escorted from his cell to the shower in belly chains and handcuffs and shackles. Where it provided showers every other day and offered 1 hour of recreation day. And in the restrictive housing unit, the recreation or the yard time, you're not with other inmates. You are actually in single person cells or single person cages outside. Yes, you may be able to communicate with other inmates that's in your block, out there on the yard, but you can't get to them and they can't get to you because you're separated in cages. Kohberger has been sentenced to 4 life terms in prison, plus 10 years for the murders of Kaylee Gonzalez, Ethan Chapin, Madison Mogan, and Xander Kernodle. After his sentencing hearing, Judge Hippler said that while he always looks for some piece of humanity, a redeeming value in each person he sentences, he cannot find one single redeeming value in Bryan Kohberger. Judge Hippler sentenced Kohberger to 4 life sentences without the possibility of parole. Before concluding, the judge told the courtroom and media at large the best thing for the community would be to put Kohberger in a box, to take away his voice, and to move on without him. And he was only at the diagnostic unit for 1 day. After going through a days-long process to determine the right housing placement in prison, Bryan Kohberger has been put in long-term restrictive housing, where he'll have to abide by strict rules when it comes to bathing, recreation time, and how he's moved around the facility. Kohberger is serving multiple life sentences in Idaho at Idaho Maximum Security Institution for the brutal 2022 murders of University of Idaho students Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xander Kernodle, and Madison Mogan. Kohberger, who pleaded guilty to the murders to avoid the death penalty, will be housed alone and spend 23 hours a day inside. He'll only be able to shower every other day, and he'll be moved in restraints. Bryan Kohberger is currently held in long-term restrictive housing on J Block at the Idaho Maximum Security Institution. A spokesperson for the Idaho Department of Corrections, J Block is a unit that can house up to 128 individuals, includes populations in general population protective custody, long-term restrictive housing, and death row. And he is in long-term restrictive housing. He's not in protective custody. Incarcerated individuals in long-term restrictive housing live in single-person cells, are moved in restraints, and are provided showers every other day, along with 1 hour of outdoor recreation daily. The rep continued, they have access to religious services, communications through JPay, and can place commissary orders. Prior to being moved to the J Block at the prison in Kuna, Idaho, Kohberger had been housed in medical placement, where he went through a reception and diagnostic unit (RDU) process to evaluate his needs and to determine appropriate housing placement. The process took 7 to 14 days. The Idaho Department of Corrections, we wait until a person completes RDU to determine their classification, housing placement, and privileges. One of Kohberger's neighbors in the Idaho Maximum Security Institution, J Block, is another infamous killer, Chad Daybell, who's on death row after being convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy charges in connection with the deaths of his first wife and 2 of his current wife's, Lori Vallow Daybell's children. Is also being held in the prison's J Block, even though the lifers and the death row inmates do not have any type of communication. The lifers, when they go out to the yard, they're in their own individual cages. But when the death penalty inmates go out, they have a little bit more freedom than the lifers. They're in J Block. That they can sit there and play cards and and other stuff like that. The Idaho Maximum Security Institution has been tailored to accommodate extremely violent offenders, according to its website. It's Idaho's most secure correctional facility. Some additional detail about Kohberger's gruesome slayings were unsealed following his July 23rd sentencing. Gonzalez's face was so disfigured that she was unrecognizable, according to documents. And an autopsy revealed that Kernodle, another one of Kohberger's 4 victims, had more than 50 plus stab wounds. While the J Block that Kohberger is housed in holds 120 inmates, total capacity at that prison is 535. The maximum security lockup is secured by double perimeter fence reinforced with razor wire and an electronic detection system. So he's not in protective custody. He's in a restrictive housing unit. What freedom he had here on the outside is gone. If he wants to take a shower now, he has to be escorted in restraints, belly chains, handcuffs, shackles. Wherever he moves throughout the prison, that has to be the way it is. And he will be escorted by at least 3 or 4 guards. And JPay, basically JPay is an email system that they have. You get pay like $1.99 to send him an email, and then he can buy a tablet on commissary where he has limited internet access to where he could communicate with his parents or his sisters. He can stream movies, and if he gets enough money on his books, he can actually buy a TV But I think with how the restitution goes, if he gets a lot of money on his books, about maybe 80% of that is going to be taken for restitution. And they won't take all of his money, but they will take a large chunk of his money to go towards his restitution. This is what the most shittiest plea bargain in history looks like. I've been through it. You know, but at least mine wasn't 4 consecutive life sentences without parole. And I'm still scratching my head why he took this plea. Yes, I know it was to get the death penalty off the table. We have 35 days and counting to see if he actually files an appeal. And a part of me is saying he's not going to file. And if he did file, what could he file on? Ineffective assistance of counsel, prosecutorial misconduct. And if he does appeal, this goes against his plea deal. So what happens if he does appeal and the judge revokes the plea deal? Are they going to slap the death penalty back on the table and retry him? Who knows? I don't see that happening. At the same time, I don't, we'll find out in 35 days if he actually appeals. And if he doesn't appeal, then we know. Just like the gentleman that was arrested down there in Arkansas. He's been charged with the death penalty for the deaths of that husband and wife. Are they going to actually commit and go all the way through with the death penalty? Or is he going to accept a plea deal? It just seems like more and more that in death penalty cases, people accept plea deals just to get the death penalty taken off the table. This almost feels like, let's make a deal. The only thing we're missing is a game show host for Let's Make a Deal. Oh, wait. We have one in Idaho. His name is Bill Thompson. And I think it's very, very crappy. You had three of the families wanting this thing to go to trial, wanting to see all the evidence laid out on the table, wanting true justice. And they had a meeting that Thursday before that hearing on the 2nd of July, where they were talking about offering a plea. And the families said, no, we want to take this to trial. What happened? The prosecution made a backroom deal with the defense. Wasn't even going to tell the families to their face. They sent them an email with a letter attached saying that we made a deal and blah, 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 blah. That was, in my opinion, cowardice on the prosecution and the defense. 1 month before trial. 1 month. Not even 1 month now. I'd say the trial would have started 2 weeks from today. We're never going to get the answers that we deserve. We're never going to get to see that alleged evidence from the prosecution. Yeah, we're seeing the Moscow PD documents that they dumped all in one day after the sentencing, which some of them don't make no sense. Like a document I was reading through last night, they had a lead about the rug connection in the house. And to the best of my knowledge, according to the document, they were still waiting from some CIs in the area on the actual connection to the house. When I saw that, first thing I thought was, is that the reason why they tore the house down? Is that the reason why the university wanted the house gone? Was that connection and that lead to the house? But we'll never know now because of that plea deal. The stupidest plea deal in judicial history. This case will go down as the most non-transparent case in the history of our judicial system. The same with Delphi, because the judge had a complete media blackout in her courtroom. During the trial as well as during the sentencing. So Richard Allen, he got sentenced in the dark. no media allowed in the courtroom. What were they trying to hide in Delphi? What are they trying to hide in Idaho? Is this Devil's Den killer case down in Arkansas going to be the same way? Only time will tell. I hope everyone has a good night. Make sure you hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that bell notification to all. And leave me a comment down in the comment section on what you guys think is going on. Enough of the plea deals. Give these victims what they deserve. True justice. This case should have gone to trial.